Hello, and welcome to Page Turners, a spookish podcast.
Ooh.
Join us this spooky season as we interrupt our regular broadcasting to bring you bi weekly horror watchings. It will be roughly the same as our normal episodes, just with creepier content. Fair warning though, there will still be spoilers. That's Liv.
And that's Amy.
Woo!
How are you?
I'm very well. I'm very well indeed. It's spooky season.
It's not. It's September. We're just getting started a
You're
little
just getting
early.
started early. And who doesn't want to get started on spooky season a little bit early? I'm loving it.
It feels very early this year because I think we've had next to no summer.
None, but I do feel like even despite that, the weather has changed again to be yet more miserable and damp and all the leaves are off the trees in our garden. It's feeling very autumnal right now.
I'm currently sipping on a lem sip, so yeah, basically Christmas, isn't it? All right, sorry, everyone's just come for me there, I imagine, for completely bypassing Halloween and going straight to Christmas. But I
Listen,
like what I like.
we are so prepared that we'll be planning for Christmas on the 1st of November. So
Very
enjoy
true.
enjoy the time you've got for it right now because we're not going to hang around long. We're planning.
Absolutely not. But for now, I have my black candle and I'm
Woo!
ready to go.
Hooray!
You guys were probably thinking, oh, The Luminaries by Susan Dennard. Yeah, no, that'd be great this week.
Uh,
We just forgot to mention that we were doing this.
yeah, spooky season crept up on us. We had a plan already in place for something a little bit different to celebrate and mark the occasion. And
Mm-hmm.
then we decided when we actually sat down and planned for what we wanted to do that, oh shit, we have to start that now if we're going to be working to Halloween time. So, yeah.
Yeah, so this is what you've got. Instead, this week, Amy and I watched a spooky film.
We did. But don't worry,
um,
if it's not your bag, every 2 weeks we will be reading a wholesome autumnal book as well. So
don't,
the plan is,
don't like the people. It could be a thriller.
well, it's still going to have autumn vibes, okay? It's not just all horror content. We haven't turned into a horror movie podcast.
If you guys remember, I'm not sure if you've been here from the beginning, horror is not my vibe. So this is sort of Amy's like living her best life, and I'm not
Mhm.
right now. So, I mean, the sacrifice I'm putting myself and my psychological being and my sleep through just for this content is it's pretty I feel like a round of applause would be necessary. Wouldn't be too much.
It's hugely appreciated.
Yeah. Yeah, not by me though. I do not. Yeah, no, no, no. We
We'll
are
have to suffer for our art, Liv. Come on.
that is very true. Yeah, so we're going to be ramping it up, much to my dismay, over the next 8 weeks. Um,
We have a list. We have a spreadsheet that I put together, complete with spooky ratings for some
yeah.
horror movies that I've enjoyed. And Liv has asked me to start off fairly tame, easing it,
Mm-hmm.
and building up to things that are a little bit more graphic, a bit more sort of intense horror, perhaps. But we'll see. We don't know. Maybe you'll find some of those higher spook rated films a walk in the park. We'll see how it goes.
I don't know. Alex has his eye on Hereditary,
Oh, we haven't
so
watched. I thought that was the one when Liv had said to me, "Oh, I've seen some of these." Instantly, I thought, "Okay, she means Hereditary." But you haven't seen Hereditary.
no, no. I've watched The Visit, by M Night Shyamalan. We went to the cinema to see that.
Oh, I liked the visit. I thought it was a bit of a fun time.
Yeah, I liked The Visit. Not as potentially scary as it could have been. I guess the twist about maybe 20 minutes in.
Yeah, yeah. But you would have said, would you say that that is a 1 out of 4 ghosties.
Yeah, for sure. For
Yeah.
sure. That's it. I would say I would class that as creepy.
Okay, good. That was my intention with it. So we've started off with 1 out of 4, because we've only got 4 films that we can actually watch. So that's why it's not out of 5, guys, just so that if you're wondering. And all the ones are more, I think, sort of unsettling, a bit creepy, but generally just a bit of a good time. Nothing too distressing, I hope.
I'm not sure I would tell the people that it's a good time, but you know, it's not as much of a good time as I don't know watching a rom-com.
In your
But
opinion?
well, sure, yeah, sure. Well, so yeah, so this will be us for the next 2 months, probably until the end of October. Potentially, we might leak into November if we're feeling fruity. Yeah, this is us. We'll put it in a. It'll be in a separate sort of section on Spotify and Apple podcasts. I don't know if Apple will let me do that, but you know, whatever. Spotify it will be. So yeah, Amy, how are you feeling about spooky season? Have you bought anything spooky related in the shops yet?
Oh, great question. Not yet, no, except from, and I don't really count these as spooky season items, but some people might do. I did buy a couple of good candles from TK Maxx a couple of weeks ago, and one
Nice.
of them was called Magical Pumpkin. So I feel like
Mm.
that's like maybe that's more autumn than spooky, but yeah, it's got nice, comforting vibes to it, which I love about this time of year.
Have you lit the candles yet? Any of the candles?
Yes, yes.
Oh wow! So the candles have already been lit. That is, whew,
Last
yeah.
Sunday was the day of the candles being lit. It was quite a momentous occasion that the summer candles were put
Oh,
away and the autumn candles were lit officially.
I can't believe you've got summer candles. I cannot bear to see a flame in summer because it is already too hot. Well, not this summer. Yeah, but very
No.
vampiric. But also, guys, if the candles have already been lit, you know that the weather in Scotland is fucking atrocious.
It's
So,
awful right now. I actually don't know how bad it is at the moment, but we've had some horrific weather.
I mean, judging by your video background, you're just sat outside of a forest with the Northern Lights behind you. So,
Yeah, yeah, I'm just in the scene of the
yeah.
film that we're about to discuss. Yeah,
Well, let's kick it off.
let's go for it. So I'm interested, Liv. So as I say, we had a list, and I
Hmm.
sent it over to Liv a couple of days ago for her consideration, and that list
Hmm.
had the name of the film, maybe I don't know what it had. It had some other things in there, but it definitely had 3 sort of words or just descriptors of how I would kind of sum up this film. And
Yep.
I'm just curious, what made you choose this as our first spooky watch of the season?
We watched The Ritual.
Hmm.
You gave me, yeah, you gave me a list of the films, you gave me the run times, and you gave me your keywords and then your spooky rating, which helpfully is 1 to 4 little ghost emojis.
I was so proud of that.
I'm really proud of your table. It looks really nice. Anyway, honestly, I think so the keywords that Amy has put for The Ritual is folk horror, British, and monster. A few things drew me to The Ritual. The runtime of 1 hour and 34, perhaps. And also, I think British seems to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think with a creature feature or a monster, I think I was explaining this to Amy while we were doing this. It's not as it doesn't stick with me for as long. It doesn't cause me to not sleep. It doesn't, you know. I can rationalize that monsters don't exist, but well, I can rationalize that supernatural monsters don't exist, but unfortunately, humans are monsters all within themselves. So anything like the Saw films, I'm all like, nope, because somebody came up with that, which means that somebody could do that to another human
Yeah.
being.
And
Um,
have, yeah. Yeah, you're totally right. Unless you're maybe going to be out camping, walking in the woods, you're unlikely to be in the same situation as the people in this film. So the risk of it happening to you is extremely slim.
yeah, and for those of you that have been around for the last 9 months, I don't know if it's going to be a shock to you that I fucking hate camping. So I don't think I'm ever going to be in this position. But yeah, I also had a quick Google of it and I saw that it's Rafe Spall, who is one of my favorite actors,
Yay.
and Rob James Collier, who is
Yeah.
I want to say Branson. It's not. It's Barrow. Thomas Barrow.
And
from Downton Abbey.
yeah.
So nice to see him in something where he's potentially not a massive prick.
Yeah, no, he was really likable in this film. It's really interesting to see, actually.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think there's a really strong cast, four main characters, so it's not as if we need to worry too much about side characters or anything like that.
absolutely not. Yeah, there's a part I wrote in my notes I thought was true until maybe about 1 hour in. I wrote all male cast
Oh yeah, until the end.
until about an hour in. Yeah. Yeah. So a quick sort of summary. For the ritual, the non-ritual fans out there.
Mhm.
Um, Essentially, four friends go off to Sweden/Norway.
I think they're in Sweden and they're going to be sort of hiking the boundary, if you like, to get from Sweden to Norway.
Is it the King's Trail? Is that what it's called?
Yeah, really famous Scandinavian walking trail. Yeah.
Famous Scandinavian walking trail that I don't remember. And essentially, the four friends go and do it as an homage to their fifth friend. Something happens. The weather and somebody hurting their foot takes them into a forest, and not all of them come out.
Yeah, that pretty much sums it up. Yep. And I think um as is the case with British horror, we get and I guess more so now, sort of American horror as well. It's not so much just slashers anymore. There's a sense of supernatural horror, but also real life horrific situations. These men have got a really troubled past, something really traumatic's happened into their friendship group. And we see how that affects their kind of psychology of them being in this really remote place. Uh,
Yeah, I think that was one of the reasons why I actually quite enjoyed this film.
ooh,
We talk a lot about how I'm a character driven person, and that doesn't change in books. It also applies to films as well. And the mere fact that we already get the beginning of Rafe Spall slash sorry, I'll refer to him as his character name, Luke.
look, yeah,
um he basically goes into an off license with his friend after him and his mates have been drinking, and there's a robbery in progress, and essentially Luke hides behind a shelf and his friend gets killed
yeah,
while he and you see him trying to like maybe think about doing something. He has a vodka bottle in his hand and he thinks about it, but he's just too scared, and he
yeah.
watches his
It's a
friend.
very realistic situation, isn't it? It's almost that horror of how realistic it is, and that we might all want to be the superhero that will go and defend our friend and save someone from that fate, but actually in the moment we freeze up, we're too scared, and
Yeah,
that's what he has to suffer with the guilt of that decision for the
yeah,
whole.
and I mean the scene itself is brutal. It's with a machete and he's almost slashed across the face, and then he goes down, and then he looks up at his Rafe Spall character, and then he's struck again, and that's it. And you see the blood, and it's brutal.
What did you think about the opening scene? Because opening scenes of horror films tend to be have quite a bit of impact for a reason because,
Yeah, I mean,
you
I
know,
enjoyed the sort of normality of it. I thought it was all the way through. I thought the film was quite funny,
yeah.
that perhaps only the British can do.
Mhm.
Our self-deprecating humor is probably the only thing that people should like us for. Um, so yeah, no, I liked it, and I liked just how normal it was, you know. But obviously, of course, you're waiting for something to happen because you know that it's this kind of film. But I really enjoyed that moment of watching him hide
Mhm.
and knowing that his friend's gonna die, like, because there's no other way for it to happen other than him having to watch his friend die, and then that really sets him up to be the hero of the piece to get that redemption.
Yes, absolutely. I also absolutely love about what I love about this film is the pacing is spot on. So we go from this really horrific opening scene to bang, we are in a tent, we are already started on the adventure. There's no how we're going to get there. Let's sit down and plan it. None of that. We're just
Yeah,
thrown straight into the deep end. And that's what I think makes it so effective. And that it's the
yeah,
contrast is shocking, quite jarring actually.
Yeah, so they make the first scene almost it's a dream, isn't it? Essentially, that whole it's Rafe Spall wakes up in the tent as if he's just been dreaming it over and over again. It's been, and we get a little 6 months later, the guys on the pilgrimage for this guy, for their friend, Rob. Rob is the dead friend.
Yes.
Um I've written them all down here. Luke, Rafe Spall, so I know that. Rob, dead friend. Phil, hand job. Because at the time, it's the bit in the scene of the forest where he says he got a hand job in a
Yeah.
Volkswagen van.
And they start
Um,
something really funny, like, oh, that's such a heartwarming story, Phil.
yeah, yeah.
The humor is really good, actually.
Um, and yeah, essentially, then we also get a really nice feeling of time because I don't know how. Actually, this is a question I'd quite like to ask you, but that the time element in horror films is it normally quite like obvious because Rob James Collier he says 1 night down, 2 nights to go, which gives us almost a sort of a countdown with them. Do you find that that happens in horror films a lot, like, or even oh, we've just got to last 1 night or
Yes.
something like that?
Yeah, and I think it adds to that that horrific sense of if they could just have lasted one more night, they only had to last another 48 hours and they would have made it. It's that sense of it's coming to an end, but just as they're about to get to a safe situation or avoid the horror altogether, they get caught up in it. Yeah.
Yeah, and you're also able to track the time with them, knowing okay, so in 2 nights' time they'll be safe.
Hmm. And we can see
And
the first night and how that goes. So,
no, they go to the top of the hill.
mm,
Then they, do they not camp again? Yeah, they camp again. Oh yeah, no, maybe not. I'm getting confused. It's fine. I have just written here in caps, don't touch the stone, because obviously with horror films, I was just waiting for something bad to happen, waiting for this
that's
thing
really
or what.
interesting. I like that. So you thought that that could have been the horrific thing, that it might have been the stone, or it might have been, yeah. So when they decided to do that very typical horror movie move where they decide, oh, I think it'd be much quicker for us to go through the really dense forest rather than taking the trail that's marked and safe. Um, did you realize then, oh, okay, it's
Oh yeah, when
down.
I realized that them touching the stone, because I was interested. I was trying to figure out whether they'd light the candles and then the candles would blow out or something, and there wasn't any wind or something, sort of signaling
Mhm,
something, or one of them would cut themselves and bleed upon the stone.
mhm,
Something I thought, but
mhm.
then when you saw Dom goes over and hurts his knee quite badly, I wrote, "Nice to see a man hurt his leg in a horror film for once."
Yeah, yeah, but again, quite a trope. He's hurt himself. Oh no, what we're going to do about it? It's going to slow us down. It's going to create another barrier that they need to overcome. So you can see it all building up, can't you?
Yeah, and the tension is crazy, and the fact that he says I can't do 14 hours, which would be the regular trail, and that's what pushes them into the forest.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, and I've written here in a similar ilk of don't touch the stone, don't go into the forest. Like,
Yeah. I think because it's and Rory and I watched this together last night because we've both seen it together, but we wanted to watch it again. And Rory had said, I think it's the fact that it's a commercial forest. So you can even see how close together the trees are. It just
mm,
looks like a nightmare. Like, how would you navigate that?
yeah, it was beautifully shot. The bit where Rafe Spall is sort of looking, and you're walking as if you're him, and it's
Yeah.
the branches together that have no leaves on them, and they're just like snapping and everything. Yeah. What would you say is the scariest scene for you?
They're so on I think it's the first night in the forest, or maybe it's the second, the weather changes and they stumble across this hunting cabin.
Yep.
Um, and quite rightly so, to be fair. They're thinking about self-preservation here. It's a really bad storm. They realize it's an abandoned hunting cabin and they kind of break in and they take shelter. Which I didn't have a problem with to start with, but then when they started just breaking the furniture up to burn it, I thought, come on, guys, this could be someone's cabin here. We're taking it to the next level. Um, but within that, they go upstairs
Yep.
They find on an altar almost, don't they, with this effigy, and instantly you know that something really sinister is going down. And then the next morning when they wake up, they've all had some various kind of nightmare. So one of them's in like a cold sweat on the floor. One of them's actually pissed themselves. He's so scared. And then Phil's character is naked upstairs, basically praying to this effigy with no
Yep.
understanding of how he came to be there. And the scene where they go in and find him,
Yep.
and he almost comes to and realizes what's he just the horror in his face when he sees what he's doing. It gave me chills. That was a
Yeah.
really, really creepy scene, man. What do
No,
you?
that I think that is probably the scariest scene. But what I do, and I don't know whether this tamps down the horror for me, is that Alex and I spend a lot of time when we watch films being like, oh no, Phil's head's on the effigy, Phil's head's on the effigy. It's stitched to the neck. So yeah, the effigy has like it's hasn't got arms, but it's almost antlers, and it's like a little wicker man without a
Yeah.
head.
Ooh.
And yeah, we were like, hey, Phil's head's on there. And then obviously to see him completely alive, but also naked and praying, it's sort of we almost not well, yeah, we almost ruin it for ourselves by being like, this isn't half as bad as we thought it was going to be.
Come on, Phil, you get your
Yeah,
head's not on the effigy.
sort yourself out, you're alive, man. But yes, no, terrifying. I think for me, ooh, I think it has to be that night is awful, but I think it's the second night in the tent.
When they can hear it.
Yeah, well, thing is, you're focused completely on Rafe Spall's character Luke, and he's the one almost that you keep seeing slip into this dream state. You keep seeing him reliving the off license again and again and again. But it's beautifully like incorporated into the forest, so you have those sort of like unforgiving lights that you have in convenience stores and things like that. And they're all around in the shelves are just put into the forest. It's brilliant. And it's that scene where then it almost becomes it definitely blurs that line of this is not actually a dream. Yes, it's in a dream, but it's not been induced by the monster anymore because the monster is here.
Yeah.
And you see the tent just go.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, and then I think for me the worst thing is I find that, and I have to applaud them to a certain extent. The monster is only scary until you see it.
I've written the same thing down because I was going to ask you. There's lots of hints to the monster. We see bits of it.
Yeah.
How effective did you find that?
Oh yeah, terrifying. I am a really huge fan of Alien.
Uh-huh. Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
except I don't class Alien as a horror, I class it as a sci-fi, so
Mhm.
it's not really a and the reason, you don't see that creature until the very final 10 minutes, last 10 minutes in its full xenomorphic form. Um, so yeah, I think it was brilliantly done. And I think actually I'm changing my scene. I'm changing my
Oh, I
scene. The
love it. Oh,
scariest scene is when Rafe Spall goes to the ridge, tries to go to the top of the ridge. They think it's there, the top of the ridge. He's in
yeah.
the middle of the fucking forest, and
Hmm.
he looks, and the camera pans, and you can see the hand, see its hand.
Yes. I
Because
couldn't really see that until it moved. So I was
I
a
saw it,
bit like, what am I looking at? What am I looking at? What am I looking at?
I saw it straight away.
Oh
I was
no.
because I've written here big capital letters, hand. Um, and yeah, and it just I was just watching, and I was like, Alex, the hand. Alex, can you see the hand? And he's like, what hand? And I was like, no, I'm
Yeah.
not being
I was,
gaslit. There's a hand there.
I was Team Alex. It wasn't until it moved that I thought, oh, okay. And it was a human hand.
Yes, and
Blah.
like almost like very small, like a child's hand.
Yeah. Oh, yuck. Yeah. Creepy.
Awful. But even then, the hand moves and then slips, and then you see something move in something massive move
Massive.
behind the tree line, but you still don't see it.
I think that's what scared me the most about the monster was it was huge and it was
Mm.
clearly stalking them through the forest, but it was so much the monster's domain that it expertly blended into these trees, despite the fact it was massive And there were
Yeah,
so many times it was probably very close to them, watching them in the tents, watching
yeah,
them as they were walking alongside them at one point because they kind of catch, you see them kind of looking and there's something with horns somewhere close by. That was
yeah.
so creepy. All those little near misses were really unsettling.
What I would say is there is a point, I wrote it down here, where I said it has given them fair warning, because I think there's a point where it says like you hear like get out in like quite a spooky ethereal voice. I'm like it's giving them fair warning, like
And
it
you,
doesn't want them in the forest. And yeah, I think that's just before Hatch is taken.
oh,
So see you later, Barrow.
I'm
Um,
so sad it was him that was the
I
first
know
one to die.
Alex and I did a little bet as to who we thought would make it out. Um, and so I thought it would be Hatch and Luke. I thought it'd be Rafe Spall and Rob James Collier, because they were sort of like the key figures. I think you got a lot of focused on them.
Yeah.
But then Alex thought it was going to be Rafe Spall and Dom,
Ah,
Anchorman.
okay, okay. Yeah. I didn't think Hutch would go first. I thought he would possibly be the middle kill, but then it made sense because he was a survivalist. He knew how to use the compass. He had more of an understanding of how to conduct himself in a forest and
Yeah,
actually get through this situation. So he had to go so that they would be completely helpless and have no clue how to get out.
yeah, I was really surprised Hatch went first, because I was expecting it to be Phil, because Phil is a person of color, and it's such a stereotype. I don't know if that's it's definitely a stereotype that I know, is that the person of color always dies first.
I think it is in maybe like 90s, maybe like teen slashers. It's quite a common trope. I think it's less
Mm.
now as we move into more sort of modern horror, and horror is very different now. It's not, it's psychological and it's not quite just a trope fest the way it used to be. But yeah, you're totally right.
I was loving it
Mhm.
until the humans got involved.
Yeah, to be honest, the end for me, not all of it, but some of it let it down for me a little bit. I got a little bit bogged down in the cult vibes. I understood it, why they did it. So it was this god, it was a Norse god. I think they said the bastard son of Loki.
Yep.
And they worshipped it and they sacrificed, I assume, not people because they didn't do anything to them. They were just preparing them for it to come, but they were building an altar, weren't they, so that they
Yeah.
could be sacrificed. Um, Luke and Dom, wasn't it, at the end?
Yeah.
Yeah, but that scene just became a little bit tired. And then I thought they were going to do that thing where maybe one of the village people would become the cult members, would maybe take pity on one of them and maybe try to
Mm.
help them. But then they never really did that. So it all felt a little bit kind of messy at the end, which was a
Yeah,
shame.
it was quite messy, because it's sort of it. I really enjoyed the idea that like it's this ethereal forest god
Yep.
against them, and up until that point there's no that forest god didn't need any help
No, no, no.
to get them. So why, yeah, the introduction of the, I suppose it, I did think, because Alex said a really good point, when they find the tent
Mhm.
like bogged down in the earth, like, and they find a wallet, and it's got an ID, and it says like Anya something, and it's got a picture of the family. Alex thought the blonde woman was Anya.
We already said the same thing.
Um, and I was like, oh, that's fascinating, because then that leads us into the fact that they don't want to kill Rafe Spall. Rafe Spall's almost been chosen, because Rafe's everyone after their dream sequence wakes up, and Rafe Spall has like almost like a little hand mark, a 5 finger sort of like clutched into his chest almost. It's bleeding, and it's like a wound, and that signals him as, well, saved in a way, but also in immense pain, and therefore he would, if all things went to plan, he would be part of that cult and serving
Yeah.
this forest god.
I don't think the god could kill everyone in a party because it needs people to worship it. So I think it
Mm,
always chooses one person to almost give the option to. It's like you
mhm.
die or you will bow to the god. That's the choices, basically. Um,
Yeah, I
why,
really did enjoy. Sorry, go on.
why did you think that Luke was the chosen character?
Because he was in pain. He was clearly broken and absolutely defeated by the fact that he couldn't save Rob.
Mhm.
Um, and obviously the friends don't help that. There's obviously I wrote third act breakup so soon. Um,
Yeah. Oh, I
you know,
know.
it's
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
probably about half an hour in, something like
Yes.
that, and there's obviously a tension brewing. There's already a tension brewing with Dom anyway, because he's sort of like Luke resents him for the fact that he is a successful businessman, and we don't actually hear a lot about what Luke does or whatever, but we do get the sense that he resents him
I got the
for being
vibe that Luke
successful.
was different to his friends in that they had families, successful careers,
Yeah.
references to wives, there was references to children, but there wasn't any of that for Luke. So I think I had the same thoughts as you that the monster chose Luke because he was the most empty and easily and the most vulnerable and probably the easiest to keep because he didn't really have anything to fight for.
I think not Anya, that we will call the blonde woman in the cult, she says to him, there is no pain here.
Yes.
Like the god takes it all away. And I thought that was the thing of the reason why he chose Luke, because he would be the most likely to want to stay, to want to
Forget.
have that forgiveness,
Yeah.
that numbness. I really enjoyed the scene despite not enjoying the human element of it. I really enjoyed the bit where he went into like the church
And they
type
were
room.
like mummified almost. They were, yeah.
Yeah. To, again, not Anya tells Luke that the god provides them with long life, far reaching immortality. Well, except, what he doesn't, what I suppose is failed to mention is that you still age and you will end up a desiccated corpse, but alive.
Yes.
And then there's these horrific sort of creatures that are like in prayer essentially with this one when and Luke goes in and he sort of like starts setting one alight, and Alex I were like, the leader, the bloke at the front, burn the bloke at the front.
We were exactly the same. We were like, maybe that's the human representation of the god. Kill that thing.
Right, kill anyone with a badge that says senior management, for God's sake.
Burn the organization starting from the top, Luke. Come on.
Exactly. Top down, mate. Don't fucking go for the peons and the workers at the bottom, the working class, the regular people. Start at the
No time to
1%.
decide as well. There was a lot of it just looking around and then just
Yeah.
gently putting the torch against it. Like, no, you've got time. There's no one coming upstairs to find you. Just get on with it.
Yeah, and it's funny how quickly it all went alight, because those people, whilst being desiccated corpses, were nothing more than like dried up bits of wood, clearly.
Husks. There's little husks sitting on the chairs. Yeah.
The monster reveal.
Ooh. Yeah.
Normally, I think I spoke about this before. I prefer to maybe keep that monster completely, but then I suppose I really enjoyed Alien, but
No.
nothing is creepier than your imagination, right? Wrong, because that fucking monster was terrifying.
Right, good. I was so impressed. Now, this didn't strike me as a film with a particularly large budget. And I thought they're maybe going to stick to just showing you glimpses because the CGI might not be up to much cop. You know, it does cost quite a lot of money for films to be able to do a monster convincingly. But this was really effective to me.
I've just had a quick Google and it says about $1 million.
So there you go. I mean, I think it stands up to some of the bigger budget films with loads of CGI. I thought it was really, really effective.
Yeah, so I mean, how would you even describe the monster? I think you when it's up close and when you see it devouring Dom, which I thought was potentially one of the saddest moments of the film, because Gail appears, Dom's wife, um, and you realize it's the monster, and it's almost like a little hooded trunk with human hands.
It has
And I was
tiny little yellow pinprick eyes, which is
Yep.
so unsettling because I think you would always imagine it would have like red, I guess like typical monster eyes.
It's
Whereas it's really quite unassuming when you just see it in isolation, just its little hooded face,
yeah,
maybe with its
yeah,
eyes, and then its creepy little human arms and hands.
yeah. It looks like a Jawa from Star Wars,
It
the
does.
little guys on Tatooine that run the scraps. Anyway,
It
but yeah, which again makes things less scary for myself. That's
it
as
does
soon as
until you zoom out, because that probably doesn't sound very scary. But when you zoom out and you see how else it's else
yeah,
comprised of, ooh,
it's almost like a skeletal horse.
yep.
Until then, it's sort of till the very end final scenes. It's a skeletal horse. It's chasing
Mhm.
Rafe Spall. He's burning everything down. It's killing all of its followers. He then sort of goes onto the ground. He bows before it, and it keeps pushing him down and pushing him, saying, "Bow, submit." And then it does this thing where it rears up, and it's almost made up of three different individual
Yeah,
humans.
three different elements. Like, yeah, it's really unsettling that bit as well. The imagery's
Like
creepy.
like they're all doing one of them's on the bottom and then the other one's doing a handstand on top of the other one and then that one's doing a handstand on top of him. Yeah, and it's quite very unsettling how skeletal horse goes to that.
Now, I have read a theory. I'd like to run the
Ooh.
theory past you with your thoughts on this.
Okay,
Um,
can I guess what you're going to say?
yeah, of course, go for it.
I reckon is the theory that, or at least the reason, is it because it's made up of humans because it feeds on their pain, or is it that he went into the forest with three of his friends
Oh.
and the three friends are now dead?
No, I mean, it's nothing to do with what it looks like as such.
Oh, right. Well, fuck me. But
It
yeah, I
kind
mean,
of is. So it's very much to do with that final scene where you're talking about, where it's getting him to submit, but it's almost
uh
becoming quite desperate in its attempts to just push him down. It's not killing
yeah.
him, it's just getting him to bow. So the theory is that this creature is actually sacrificing the humans to an even higher god, a god that it answers to. And that's why
Ooh,
it doesn't eat anyone as such. It purely impales them in quite a ritualistic way. You see them sort of spread
yeah,
out amongst the trees. And then it's desperately trying to get him to kneel before it because at this stage, all its other followers are dead.
yeah.
The theory is that it realizes that if it doesn't have another one, someone to worship it and bring it more followers, then it's going to anger its god.
That is fascinating. Yeah, no, that is really interesting. And also I think quite realistic in terms of a theory because you see the mirroring of the elk that's been torn apart at the beginning that they find, and then Hatch's body, and then Phil's body,
Yep.
and then all the bodies put into the trees. What I would say is, if that's the case, why does the god come to the like cult house and kill them all? Maybe because they failed him.
I don't
It
know.
them.
Maybe. I don't really know why. I don't know if it's because I don't know. I don't even know if I 100% agree with the theory. Just the thing that I liked about it that did make me think maybe is that it couldn't leave the forest. So at the end, when Rafe Spall's character escapes the tree line and
Yeah,
he enters that kind of pasture area that he manages to make his way over to, you see it pull up short and it can't come beyond the tree line. It can't leave the forest. So the theory then ties in that it's also trapped, it's having to do this higher god's bidding.
interesting.
Don't know. Don't know.
Yeah, because not Anya again says that they cannot leave this place. So you're right. Like it's the same for this god as well as it is for its followers. That's really interesting. I like that. I like always double checking sometimes if it's a film like this, going like the ritual ending explained, just
Yeah.
to sort of make sure I've missed nothing.
That was exactly what I did because I thought, yeah, I think I get it, but I just want to be sure. At the end, when you see it roar, because it roars in frustration or pain or grief, we don't know why. We don't really know what it's expressing there. Um, what did you think about Luke's reaction when he screams back at it in almost defiance? Is it defiance? Is it pain? Is it anger? What do you think he's trying to convey there?
I think it's probably pain. I think he almost registers that the creature is in pain, but then also he doesn't care because it's the source. Well, three of the sources of his pain.
Mhm.
I think it was really guttural and visceral, and Rafe's Ball just keeps like screaming at it. Um, but almost I think in a victorious way as
Yeah.
well.
Okay.
But no, I really liked it. I was a bit annoyed that we didn't see him get picked up.
Okay.
Lots of things are open to interpretation. I appreciate that, and you do see the car in
You see the
on
car coming
in the
along.
shot. You
Yeah.
see you see a car, and you assume obviously that But I like
I know you do. You always
concrete
say you can have a
evidence.
happy or a sad, but never an ambiguous. So I did realize that when I was watching it, that it is a very ambiguous ending.
So my question to you would be, how does this compare to horror films that you've watched in terms of do you view this as one of a really good one, or but then also on another scale, do you what scares you,
Mm.
and is this something that scares you?
So, short answer, no. I don't find
Okay.
it a particularly scary film. I really enjoy it as a film because I like the cinematography. I like the sound design. I think the pacing is really, really effective. And I also love, which I love in a lot of British horror films, that you really care about the characters. The number of times I've watched a horror film and I haven't got a clue what the main character is even called by the end is
Yeah.
like couldn't even count it. Whereas here you knew, and even when you were sitting together watching it, on the couch together, Rudy and I, it was like, oh no, what's going to happen to Hutch? What's going to? You knew you were actually really cared about the characters and wanted them to survive.
Mm,
Um, but for me, that's why I would say yes, I think it is an effective horror. And I actually think it's one that I would recommend to people, but only if they said to me, I want something a bit creepy, a bit thrilling, um, that's not going to take a long time, and you know, it's going to be a good night. It's going to be a fun watch. I
yeah.
wouldn't say if you want something that's going to make you shit your pants, then this is the film for you because
Yeah.
for me it's not that high up on the official spooky scale.
The shit the pants scale. Yeah, fair.
Yeah, it's low. It's low on that. But I love that about horror. It's so subjective. So you could have sat here today and said to me, "Oh, why did you rate that 1 star? I think that should have been 4." I think that's the great thing about it. We don't know because everyone's got things that just get to them, and it could be something
Mm,
tiny. It could be a sound. It could be a bit of the monster design. It could be one scene that just sticks with you and you can't shake it.
yeah.
But in this particular film, there's nothing that I would really be affected by, I don't think. Unless I was out in the woods right now in a tent. I'm sure I would feel differently. But yeah, what about you? Do you think it would stick with you?
It didn't stick with me last night,
Okay.
which was nice. I think the only thing that would potentially stick with me is the effigy
Okay. Yeah.
and the little wicker man with no hands but massive antlers. Yeah, that's quite creepy. No, I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was very reminiscent of one of my actual favorite films that is a happens to be a horror, Dog Soldiers.
Yeah. Okay. Yep.
Similar sort of thing of like, blackish comedy,
Hmm.
gory, quite a small cast of people,
Hmm.
and sort of in a hut in the woods,
Yeah.
essentially, and isolated and trapped, and you've got monsters coming after them.
And
Um,
character driven.
yeah, yeah. So,
Yeah. Cool.
yeah, it was quite nice, and I think potentially a really nice one before we fall off a ledge and they're all awful.
Okay, so if we're thinking about your next pick, and we're
Mm-hmm.
not revealing right now what that is, um, British horror. Would you
Yep.
say it's something you would want to watch more of? Is it something, did you feel it was a bit too close to home and it's maybe made it a bit too real? Or do you think you'd want to try some more British horror in the future?
Oh, for sure. No, I'd be down for British horror. I think obviously the too close to home things only I think relevant in a visual sense for me. Like we've got British guys, and that wasn't necessarily like, oh, this could just be me, you know.
Yeah,
I think also I had a look and it's filmed in Romania, so I feel 100% a
you're
lot
safe.
better.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think if it was done maybe in the Lake District, if it and if they'd gone camping in the Lake District, maybe then I would be a bit more like, oh,
yeah. Yeah.
the retreats we go on with our friends are ruined considering they've got a house in the Lake District. So sorry guys, I can't come anymore because I don't want to be murdered or sacrificed to a big Nordic god. But
Nope.
again, because it's in Sweden slash Norway, um, it's yeah, out of sight, out of mind. No, I really enjoyed it, and it helps that you like the actors as well because you know they're good actors.
Mhm. Yeah.
So
Definitely. All right. Okay. So, do you think it is a 1 out of 4 spooky ghosties?
oh, for sure. Yeah, I think it is definitely. I wrote here not really a horror, um, but I'm not sure what else I could categorize it as because for me, horror is like the manifestation of everything wrong in your brain that like is terrifying. Um, and whereas this was a bit more survival adventure-y.
Okay, fair. I like that. Yeah,
Um,
I agree.
but
I agree.
yeah, sometimes
I could
yeah,
watch this
yeah.
on my own. And
I don't think I can watch this on my own. Uh,
okay.
there was a moment because we're obviously coming to the end of summer that we've already mentioned and flogged about that conversation like a dead horse. The back door was open so the dog could go in and out. And no, I made sure before we started watching the film that Alex locked all of the doors, so that we wouldn't have to do that.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, no, yeah, that's definitely our preferences. Distancing us from each other in terms of opinion there, I think.
Fair enough. Fair enough. So, if we're thinking about our next pick, which
Yep.
again, we're not confirming it here right now, you have to wait. Um, are you ready for something a little bit more intense?
Yeah, I think if this is the plan for us to ramp up right up until Halloween, then I suppose the rest of the wands are out, and now we move into a two ghost rating.
Woo!
I feel like we should also mention that the ritual is based on a book.
It is. So bookish still stands.
It absolutely does. I read the plot as well, and there is not a fifth friend.
No, I heard that the ending also is quite significantly different in the book.
Um, yeah, I mean, I forgot all, but the thing that stuck with me is that the reason they go to Sweden or Norway is not because of an homage to their friend.
Ah,
I
oh,
think
okay.
I think that loses something almost.
Ooh, I can't even
They,
think how that would work without that element in the story actually, because so much of it relies on his guilt and his
yeah,
need to redeem himself almost in his own eyes.
mm, but
Oh,
no, not at all, not at all. But yeah. So as we go on, basically, I think we were talking about or toying with the idea of doing horror films that are based on books, but we're just gonna end up watching a lot of Stephen King.
yeah.
So, um,
There is quite a bit, but I think if we want to ramp it up each week, or every 2 weeks, then yeah, we're not giving ourselves a lot of scope by only sticking to book adaptations. Right. So, what would you rate the ritual for you? Do you think you want what do you think you need less of to ramp it up? Do you need more monsters? Do you need something a bit less supernatural? Like what's taking it to the next level for you, do you think that the ritual misses? Because your thoughts are it's not really a horror. So what do you think it misses to get that categorization?
jump scares
Okay.
for sure.
Okay.
It does really well at creating tension. Like there were times when I had to hold Alex's hand because I was like, I'm waiting for this jump scare. I feel this tension, and then the jump scare. It doesn't really come,
No,
but
no, it doesn't rely
um, but
on jump scares very much in this film.
but yeah, no, I think the actual physical that is something that I would class as a horror, and potentially more gore.
Okay.
Gore doesn't really bother me. I've watched an awful lot of adventure action films, and especially when they're up high and you see an awful lot of death. Like, that's not brutal death, I think, is what we're missing here. Not that I want it, just for everyone to be clear, I don't want brutal death and jump scares, but Amy asked me a question as to what gets us up to a higher ghost rating, and yeah.
That's the answer. All right. Okay. We'll keep that in mind, and we'll see what we come up with for next time.
Yeah, so guys, next week we will be actually delivering you The Luminaries.
Yeah. Apologies.
By Susan Dennard. So yes, this is the beginning of our sort of like spooky reads. I've given Amy a list of books.
Mm-hmm.
And Amy will be choosing the next few reads. Do we want to maybe say that there'll be a significant read at the end of the month, at the end of October?
There will be. We won't mention what it is, I don't think, at this stage.
Not.
But there will be a very classics, I would want to say, spooky autumn season read.
Yeah, I'm not sure, and I do not intend to try and give anything away here, but I'm not sure I would ever describe this book as spooky. But I understand the vibes.
The vibes. For pure vibes alone, it comes under this category. It's not a creepy read. It's not a spooky read.
I don't think anyone will be surprised that this is the book we've chosen.
I'm excited.
Yes,
I'm
too.
actually, before that, I'm excited to get through the list of the books that you've collated, because there are quite a few on there that I'm really keen to read.
Yeah.
Witchy, wholesome, 90s nostalgia. Like, yeah, sign me up. Sounds like a fun time.
Maybe this is what will push us into November for spooky reads. But then see, with the spooky reads, we don't have to really keep it to October, whereas if we do anything for Christmas, surprises, clues, potentially, that does have to probably stay in the month of December.
Yes, it does. Yeah. If we're going to be watching Christmas films, we promise we won't watch them in January.
Yes. Well, at least not past 12th night.
No, fair enough.
But yeah, so we hope you enjoyed the beginning of this little series.
Oh, hang on. My door's going.
No.
All good. It wasn't a Nordic god. It was just Rudy.
He's about as tall as that god, isn't he?
Yeah. He had to bend to get in there. Just creepy little hands.
But you married him because he's funny, not because he's
not because he doesn't look like a forest dwelling god beast. Anyway.
But yes, guys, we hope you enjoyed this little series that will begin. We hope you enjoy the whole thing. I for sure as fuck won't. But just remember that joy of that schadenfreude of watching me have a miserable time will fuel your lives of having a good time, hopefully. Yes, we will see you next week for the Luminaries with Susan Dennard. In the meantime, we will actually start posting to TikTok. Page Turners Pod on both TikTok and Instagram. Podcast page turners at gmail.com. Email us, just email us about something. Will somebody just email us?
Email us. We don't even get junk mail on that email account. I don't even get excited anymore thinking that I'm someone emailing us.
If you are listening to this on Spotify, you can comment afterwards. Tell us what you thought, even if it's just you don't even need to give an opinion on the podcast. Just tell us if you watched The Ritual, what you thought. Just do something, guys. Engage back with us, please, God. I'm begging you. We do have a Patreon. Look, we try our best. It's £2 a month for you. Go on there. Yeah. Anyway. Happy watching. Happy seasoning watching. Spooky wookies. Yeah. I don't know how we're gonna end this.
I know. Stay spooky. Bye.
Oh, I love that. Stay spooky.